Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from one of Spain's most revered saints, Saint Teresa of Avila, a spirited doctor of the Church. Join me, Amy Thomas, once a week as we read from Saint Teresa's book, The Interior Castle. Welcome, all my Catholic pilgrims out there, my scholastic students, lovers of knowledge. You know, I love to teach, and even though that's not what I went to school for, I do feel like it's a calling for me. What's funny is that it all started back in my late grade school years. On the last day of school, I would stay behind and help my teacher clean her room, and consequently, she would give me all kinds of goodies to take home. I was a bit of a Hermione Granger. She would give me math worksheets, geography worksheets, stickers, a few red pens. Oh, how I cherish a red pen. Classroom decorations. And I would take all these treasures home and create a classroom down in the basement of our house. And much to the delight of my siblings, I would hold summer classes down there. And let me tell you, to this day, they thank me profusely for the knowledge I imparted on them. Yeah, right. I'm just kidding. They never pass up an opportunity to grumble about the summer classes I held for them. You know, younger siblings just do not appreciate the lengths that the oldest sibling goes through to improve their lives. We are an underappreciated class of people for sure. With that all being said, I am extremely excited to jump into this new chapter, Chapter 3 of the Sixth Mansion. I'm very excited to talk about it because it covers locutions, and I'm excited to see what we can learn from it, and hopefully if I can shed any light on what she's talking about. As we learned last time, there are corporal locutions, imaginary locutions, and intellectual locutions. Locutions are when you hear a voice. And in spiritual circles, we use the word locution to mean when you believe that you have heard God's voice, possibly Mary's voice, an angel's, or one of the saints. And one of the reasons that I'm so excited to talk about locutions is because all of us, all believers, desire to hear God's voice speak to us. Whether that be an external voice or an internal voice, we want to hear from him. I mean, how many times have we said, or have we heard people say, I just wish God would tell me loud and clear what he wants me to do? We've all said that in one form or another, and so I think this is going to be a topic of great interest, and St. Teresa has some great insight for us. So we will be reading from the Sixth Mansion, Chapter 3, Numbers 1 through 5. And before we begin, a word from our sponsor, Chrism Press. In The Good Death of Kate Montclair by Daniel McGurney, follow Kate's journey as she faces the end of her life. With a brain tumor diagnosis and only months to live, Kate is desperate to find some sense of purpose and meaning. When she attends the Washington, D.C. Death Symposium, she reconnects with old friends and confronts the mistakes of her past. This poignant and thought-provoking novel is a must-read for anyone grappling with the big questions of life and death. Go to chrismpress.com to purchase your copy and use the coupon code PILGRIM15 to receive 15% off your first order. Okay, let's hear about locutions. God arouses the soul in another manner, which, though in some ways apparently a greater favor than the above mentioned, yet may prove more dangerous. Therefore I will give some particulars about it. He does this by means of words addressed to the soul in many different ways. Sometimes they appear to come from without, at other times from the inner depths of the soul, or again from its superior part, while other speeches are so exterior as to be heard by the ears like a real voice. At times, indeed very often, this may be only a fancy, especially with persons of a lively imagination or who are afflicted with melancholy to a marked extent. I think that no attention should be paid to either class of people when they say they see, hear, or learn anything supernaturally. Do not disturb them by saying that it comes from the devil, but listen to them as if they were sick persons. Let the prioress or confessor to whom they tell their story bid them think no more of it, as such matters are not essential in the service of God. The devil has deceived many Christians thus, although perhaps it is not so in their case. Therefore, they need not trouble themselves about it. Thus, we must accommodate ourselves to their humor. If we tell them their fancies proceed from melancholia, there will be no end to the matter, for they will persist in maintaining they have seen and heard these things, for so it seems to them. The truth is, care should be taken to keep such people from too much prayer and to persuade them, as far as possible, to take no notice of their fancies. The devil makes use of these weak souls to injure others, even if they themselves escape unhurt. There is need for caution both with feeble and strong souls at first, until it is certain from what spirit these things proceed. I maintain that, in the beginning, it is always wiser to resist these communications. If they come from God, this is the best way to receive more, for they increase when discouraged. At the same time, the soul should not be too strictly controlled or disquieted, for it cannot help itself in the matter. To return to discuss the words addressed to the soul. Any kind I mentioned may come either from God, the devil, or the imagination. By the help of God, I will endeavor to describe the signs distinguishing the one from the other, and when these locutions are dangerous, for they occur to many persons who practice prayer. I do not wish you to think, sisters, that there is any harm either in believing or in disregarding them. When they only console you or warn you of your faults, it matters not whence they come or whether they are only fancies. I caution you on one point. Although they may come from God, you must not esteem yourself more highly, for he often spoke to the Pharisees. All the good consists in profiting by his words. Take no more notice of any speeches you hear which disagree with the Holy Scriptures than if you heard them from Satan himself. Though they may only rise from your vivid imagination, look upon them as a temptation against the faith. Always resist them. Then they will leave you and cease, for they have little strength of their own. The other day, I was listening to a podcast by Michael Knowles. He's a guy who works for the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's company, and Michael Knowles has his own podcast there. He was interviewing an ex-psychic, and it was a fascinating interview as New Age stuff is all the rage, and people are engaging in psychic readings now at an alarming rate. The lady that he interviewed had grown up with her culturally Catholic family, indulging in psychic activities pretty much all her growing up years. She was familiar with tarot cards and palm readings and such, and as she got older, her and her sister started dabbling in it and started doing readings on each other and then others. Well, the lady, Jen is her name, started getting information about people. And she could conjure up dead spirits, which, as she tells you, is nothing more than a demon manifesting itself as your dead loved one. It's not really your grandpa. But she would be out and get voices in her head telling her information about strangers, and she would be almost compelled to then go up to them and give them a reading. Now, she was told that this was a gift from God. And she truly believed that what she was doing was good for people. And she said all this new agey stuff adds in elements of Christianity to make it seem good and legit, but deep down it's nothing but demonic. She has since left that all behind, thank goodness, and become Christian, and she now sees the reality of what she participated in, nothing short of being a tool of the devil, and she hates the fact that she was so deceived and that she was aiding Satan. St. Teresa tells us today that locutions, quote, may come either from God, the devil, or the imagination, unquote. Now, you may hear me say that and think, well, gosh, wouldn't it be easy to tell? But it's actually not so easy. And what this means is that we must be very, very discerning and not just believe anything that we think we hear or anything that others say that they hear. We can trick ourselves into thinking that we are hearing from God when it's really our imagination. St. Teresa says, quote, "At times, indeed very often, this may be only a fancy, especially with persons of a lively imagination or who are afflicted with melancholy to a marked extent," unquote. So we can trick ourselves. That's not out of the realm of possibility. But then also Satan can as well, as I explained in the above example from the psychic. She thought that she was doing a good thing, and the devil had deceived her into thinking that, and other people around her too, obviously. She supposedly thought she was helping people to get in touch with their loved ones or to gain insight into the future that they deemed as being helpful. But as Jen explained, it's not real, and it bypasses God in an effort to get information. And St. Teresa tells us in two different places that, one, quote, "the devil has deceived many Christians," unquote, and two, quote, "the devil makes use of these weak souls to injure others, even if they themselves escape unhurt," unquote. And that's exactly what the psychic said she was doing. She realizes now that she was hurting, not helping people by leading them down a path where they believed in and relied upon the occult for information. This could potentially keep people from ever really and truly coming to God. And so we must be very, very careful. Thankfully, of course, there are times when locutions are truly from God. And I'm sure St. Teresa is going to expound on that some more for us in the rest of this chapter. The important thing to remember is, with regards to locutions, is they aren't an everyday occurrence. Not everyone is going to have them. You cannot muster godly locutions up at will. So all those pastors that you've seen on TV that talk about how God is telling them this and God is telling them that while they are on stage preaching, you can bet that that is fake. And as St. Teresa says, we should pay no mind to people like that. Discernment is the key, and knowledge on what is real and what isn't will help us with discerning locutions. But also something else St. Teresa says about locutions. If we're unsure, she says we can just ignore them and just dismiss them. And if they truly are from God, they will keep coming up and keep coming back. And, God will keep presenting those locutions to us. And if they're not of God and we just dismiss them and they go away, then they were probably from us in the first place, or possibly from the devil. So just to keep those things in mind. That is all for today, Catholic pilgrims. We will meet soon. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.